to her today. For us, the relationship with Canada is invaluable. It's a relationship that encompasses our common history, so much of our culture. We share membership of NATO, the G8, of the G20, of the Commonwealth. Canada is our partner across a very broad spectrum of foreign policy issues. And just last week we saw the official opening of our new consulate office in Calgary, bringing to 5 the number of diplomatic missions that the UK has in Canada. A modest addition perhaps, but an important one nonetheless, and a clear signal of, in these difficult economic times, of where we see our priorities, which includes in the relationship with Canada. I've held very good discussions with John Baird today on many issues, from the situation in Syria to the conclusion of an EU-Canada free trade agreement, from the welcome reforms in Burma to the modernization of the Commonwealth, from the lack of transparency from Iran on its nuclear ambitions to the progress that we're making in Somalia on transition back to a viable democratic state. On Syria, the most pressing international issue on our common agenda, we discussed how we work together to support a transition to a more democratic and stable Syria, to collaborate to ensure safe and unhindered access to humanitarian support, and to encourage the United Nations Security Council to take firm action to support a political solution. The strength and warmth of the relationship between the UK and Canada brings real benefits to us both, and it's important we maintain that close cooperation and friendship and build on it wherever we can. When our Prime Minister visited Canada in September last year, he and Prime Minister Harper endorsed a joint declaration setting out a renewed vision for our partnership. 1 year on, our revitalized collaboration has brought considerable and tangible results across a range of fields, such as partnerships in scientific innovation and research, reform of the Commonwealth, interoperability between some aspects of our military forces. Today we've endorsed, as you've heard, an annex to that joint declaration setting out further commitments to work together. And I'm especially pleased that it includes strengthening international efforts to prevent sexual violence in conflict, support for the development of institutions in Somalia, and addressing the threat of piracy in the Horn of Africa. We've signed our Memorandum of Understanding on closer cooperation between our foreign ministries, which is exactly in the way John Baird has described. This looks to cooperate, to increase our cooperation, to maximize our reach and impact on how 2 vibrant foreign ministries with common goals can, in many respects, can work together on values, the shared values that John Baird has described can work together. It is about speed and flexibility, practicality, saving the taxpayer money in both countries, but also being able to operate effectively in a networked world. It's not in any respect about any diplomat trying to work for 2 countries at the same time. And so it is the kind of practical cooperation which sensible foreign ministries take together in a world where there are more centres of decision making than ever before, and where we need to be present in more places than ever before. Thank you very much.
Regret first that neither of you can cut it anymore. You can't afford anymore to destroy the world as independent actors quite as independently as you used to. And secondly, you're also tending to dilute your independent identity as nations on the world stage. And I'd like to have both of your comments on that, and also specifically, will the Canadian flag fly over the British embassy along with the Union Jack in Burma, and vice versa in Haiti?
Let me say, Terry, this won't be the first time that I completely disagree with everything in your question, or CBC for that matter. Let me say this. What this is about, we have reported in the question period by the opposition leader. We had some 97 missions. We have 178 missions in 106 countries. It's not new that Canada would not have a physical presence in every single country or in every single city. Very few, if any, countries do. But what it does allow us, as an example, is what I've cited. Take the example of Haiti. I had the occasion to visit Port-au-Prince. I was flying in, sat next to the British ambassador who is resident in Santo Domingo, and we talked about the potential that the United Kingdom had with the new interest in showing in development and support for the people of Haiti. We talked about there being an opportunity where we could, if they wanted to have a member of the British Foreign Service work out of our office, that would be very welcome. So that would go from zero physical presence to having someone on the ground. I came back from visiting Burma in March and was very enthusiastic about the idea of opening up an embassy there. Obviously we can't open it up overnight, and the British have very welcome to allow us to have someone working out of there. So it obviously would continue to be a Canadian embassy, or in the other case, a British embassy. But just having a presence that we wouldn't otherwise into such an extreme. What I think we're saying is, and I'll use these two examples. We only have two examples where we have done it since William and I became ministers. What we're saying is we're welcoming the United Kingdom's wanting to participate in the development of Haiti. And there'll be an empty office there where there'll be a British diplomat works.
But you no longer have an independent mission, is what I'm trying to say.
I fail to see, we have 77 people working at our mission in Port-au-Prince. I fail to see that having one or two British diplomats sharing one office changes the independence of our mission.
Well, in Burma you don't have an independent mission, but in Burma you don't have an independent mission.
I'm just going to add to the what Mr. Baird has been saying. We're two countries with large diplomatic networks. Canada has a large diplomatic network, as John Baird has been describing, and so does the United Kingdom. But we can't be everywhere. We're not always instantly everywhere. We're expanding at the moment the British diplomatic network, adding about 19 consulates and embassies to our network around the world. But we are not represented in every country or every part of every country. And yet, in this multipolar world, there are more centres of decision-making, more centres of economic activity than ever before. And so as we seek to have representation in more places, of course it makes sense for friendly countries to work together. But it doesn't in any way change their own independence of policy and independence of action. It just makes sound, practical sense. And wherever there are diplomats from different nations working in sharing accommodation or sharing services, there is no problem, to answer the original question, flying the flags of all the countries involved.
So you'll have both on the embassy
or more, or however many.
Greg, I'm wondering if you can comment on the Daily Mail today said that this is an attempt to counteract the European Union expanding its foreign services. Can you comment on that?
It's not related to that. Obviously, we work very closely with other European foreign services and with the external action services of the EU. And there are places where we sometimes share a compound with some of the other foreign ministries of the European Union. But it's not related to that. Work with other nations around the world, our work with Canada on so many of the issues we've described, is in addition to our work with the European Union. Not only is the world now a place with more centres of decision-making, it's not a zero-sum world. And finding practical ways to cooperate successfully with other nations doesn't in any way diminish relations within the European Union.
Mr. Baird,
We don't see it in that way.
If I could address the European Union, we have the United Kingdom, the United States, Australia are all great partners with Canada. In my 18 months as Minister of Foreign Affairs, I have been impressed with the work of Baroness Ashton, the EU High Representative for Foreign Affairs. We've had great partnerships on issue after issue after issue with the European Union, and we appreciate the work that they do and value the strong relations. We're pleased that Baroness Ashton will be visiting.